Hello, everybody. My name is Alice, and I'm a librarian for the Portola Valley and the Woodside Libraries. And I wanted to say welcome to another activity with our summer STEAM camp from San Mateo County Libraries. Before we get going, I wanted to just remind you of a couple of things. One of those is that we are now doing curbside pickup at the library. So if you've been really missing those actual physical library books, you can visit smcl.org/curbside to get some more information about how to get those books from the library. The other thing I wanted to make sure that you remembered was that you can still sign up for our summer learning challenge. So you can visit summerlearners.org to get more information about how to do that. And to be part of that, you get to do all sorts of reading and activities and get prizes for it, which is super fun. So I hope that you will sign up. Now, this is a STEAM camp activity, and you might remember if you've watched any of my other videos that my favorite part, well, one of my favorite parts of STEAM is the math part. And one of the reasons I really like math is that it's like solving a puzzle. And have you ever done a math problem where it feels like you're figuring out a puzzle? That's how I feel when I do math. And there are some parts of math that look a lot like what you might think of as a normal kind of puzzle, like a jigsaw puzzle. Now, one of my favorites, is something called Tangrams, which are an ancient Chinese puzzle that have 7 pieces. And you can actually see one up on the board here that I made. And each of these pieces is called a tan. So Tangrams have 7 tans. And these are such an ancient puzzle that nobody really knows where they came from, but they're used to make shapes and to tell stories. You can see I made a shape up here. I'll let you think about what that shape might be. But I'm also going to tell you a story using tangrams, and this story is about how they were invented, but because they're so old, nobody really knows where they came from. So this is just one of many different versions of the story about the invention of tangrams. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you so that we can see the story of tangrams. So, once upon a time, very, very long ago, so long ago, in China, there lived a man who was also a very, very talented artist. And this artist was a master glassmaker. These days, you know, you see glass anywhere. It's in your windows and in your cups at home, whatever. But back a long time ago, it was much harder to make glass. So when he made this most beautiful square pane of glass, he said to himself, "This glass is my masterpiece. I must go and travel and give it as a gift to the king." So he wrapped it up really carefully in layers and layers of fabric, and he started on his journey. After a day of traveling, he came to a huge desert. He thought, there's no way I can walk across this desert. So he bought a camel to help him cross the sand. And after many days riding through the desert, he came to a wide, wide river. He sighed and said, "Well, I've gotten along well with this camel, but it's never going to be able to swim across the river with me." So he traded it for a boat so he could sail across that river. On the other side of the river were the tallest mountains he had ever seen. They were a little scary looking, really big. He looked like they'd get him really tired really fast, but he was determined to bring that gift to the king, so he began to climb up the mountains. When he reached the top, he looked down and he could see the palace not that far away at the bottom of the mountain. He was so excited that he was almost done with his journey that as he hurried down the hill, he tripped and he fell and he dropped the bag with the beautiful glass on a rock. But he thought, I wrapped it really well. It's fine. I'm not going to worry about it. He picked it up and he continued on with his journey. Finally, he arrived at the gates of the palace. And Even though he was kind of sweaty and dusty from the road, when he said he had a present for the king, he was escorted straight into the throne room because the king really liked presents. But when the artist got to the throne room and opened up his package, he was so upset. He discovered that the glass had broken up into 7 pieces. Now he knelt on the ground and frantically tried putting them back together while the king watched, but he kept ending up with the wrong shape. He made a triangle, he made a rectangle, he made a parallelogram, but finally, he put the pieces back together into a square, and he looked up at the king. He was expecting the king to be pretty grumpy that his present was broken, but to the artist's surprise, the king was smiling. "What a wonderful puzzle you have brought me," exclaimed the king. "I'm going to have them made out of wood and sent out all over the kingdom." And that is this one story of how tangrams were invented. The end. So, I sometimes play with tangrams with kids at the library, and usually when I do that, I print out a piece of paper that has all of the shapes that you can just cut out. But I actually don't have a printer at home, so I couldn't do that. So I thought, well, why don't we all make our own tangrams together? So there are a few supplies we will need to do that. One of them is we'll need a piece of paper. You'll also need a pencil or a pen, something to write with. I recommend a pencil just in case you want to erase something, because we want to be pretty precise when we're making these. You'll also need something like a ruler or a straight edge to draw super straight lines with. And you'll need scissors because we're going to be cutting them out. An optional thing that I use that I would recommend, but it's not necessary, is to have some glue and some cardboard. I used an old cereal box for my cardboard. And that just, you can glue your tangrams to that to make it a little bit stronger so they'll last a little longer. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again because that seemed like the easiest way to show you the steps for making the tangram. So let's go ahead and we start with just our plain piece of white paper. Now we want to turn this piece of paper into a square. It doesn't have to be white, by the way. Mine just happens to be because that's what I have at home. You can use any color you want as long as you can see the lines you draw on it. But we want to turn this piece of paper into a square, and you can kind of tell that this side is a bit longer than this side, and that's not going to work for making the tangrams. So there's a trick for doing that. You're going to take one of the corners and fold it down so that the top edge of the paper lines up with one of the long sides. And you'll see you should have, it looks a little off from the photo I took, but this should be a rectangle here that has 2 really long sides and 2 short sides. So you're going to go ahead and draw a line along the edge of the edge of the fold there, and then you can cut it out. And that's going to make your square with 4 sides that are all the same, and then your rectangle. Now we don't need that rectangle for our tangrams, so if you want, you can recycle it or save it for another art project or another STEAM project. And then, now that you have your square, we're going to take it and fold it in half and make a rectangle. We want to be as precise as we can with this. Then you're going to unfold it again. Now, you should have a piece of paper that has a fold down the middle. And we're going to take the sides of the paper and fold them so that they touch the middle, sort of like double doors. And then go ahead and unfold those again. All of this folding is just so later on when we're drawing lines, we're going to have some points that we can use to help us draw the lines in the right place. All right, so now we are going to rotate the paper. So if you have your paper like this, I'm going to turn it so the sides are now the top and the bottom. And we're going to do all that folding again in the other direction. So go ahead and fold it in half and unfold it. and then fold those side edges in so you have doors. And then unfold all of it. We're all done with our folding now, and we're ready to start drawing our tangram shapes, or our tans. So you should have a 4x4 grid of folded squares. Hopefully it looks like that, more or less. So the first line we're going to draw is we need to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner. And there's a tip that you actually already have that crease that you made to make your square. That crease is exactly what that line should look like. So you can go ahead and use your straight edge to just draw along that crease that goes from corner to corner. And then you're going to find the middle of your paper. I pointed it out right here. And you're going to find that point and then one of those other corners, and you're going to draw a line from that middle to the corner using that straight edge. Now you should have, let's stop and take a look at our shapes really quick. I have, let's see, how many sides do these have? This has 1, 2, 3 sides. So that's a triangle. And that's also a triangle. It looks exactly the same. And then we have here under my hand a really big triangle. So we're going to look at this bigger triangle, and that's the one we're going to be dividing up to make the rest of our tans. So we're going to take the midpoint here again, and then we're going to find this spot where these two folds join up near that other corner. And we're going to draw a line between those. So now it should look like this. All right, now we're going to find the middle of 2 of the sides of the paper. So if you can find one side and the middle point of that, and then the other side and the middle point of that, you're going to draw a line between them that actually goes through the end of that line that you already drew. Right. Now let's draw, we have 2 more lines to draw, and then we'll be done making our tangrams. So the second to last line that we are going to draw is between the midpoint between this middle and that corner. We're going to draw a line so it makes a square. Oop, I gave it away. Oops. The shapes that we see, we have these 2 bigger triangles. We've divided up our really big triangle into, I already said, square. And it looks like we have 1 smaller triangle, 1 kind of medium triangle. And then we have this other shape, which is a little funny. It has, let's count the sides. 1, 2, 3, 4 sides, but it's not a square, not a rectangle. These sides don't line up at all. So let's divide up this last piece for our very last line. We're going to take this spot here between that middle of your big square and the corner, and then this bit here where all those lines join up, and you're going to draw a line between those 2 points. And you should have all of your pieces. So we have the 2 big, what were these again? We have 1, 2, 3 sides, so they're triangles. And we have our medium triangle, and we have 1, 2 small triangles and a square. And this shape here, which actually came up in our story earlier, does anyone remember what it's called? It's called a parallelogram. And that's because the sides opposite each other are parallel to each other, which means they go in the same direction. So these 2 sides are parallel. They go in the same direction as each other. And these 2 sides are parallel and go in the same direction. Right. And then we're ready to cut them out if we want, but before I cut mine out, I took mine and I glued them to this cardboard just to make them a little sturdier. This was a cereal box. And then once you've glued them and cut them out, you can color them in if you want. I like making rainbows, so mine are a rainbow, but they could all be the same color. Or if you're tired of doing things with them and don't want to color them in and just want to get to making shapes, that's great too. It's fine if they're whatever color. And you're ready to start solving puzzles and telling stories with them. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And did anyone figure out what was up on my board there? I think it looks like a cat. So maybe you could try to figure out how to make a cat. Now that's all the time I have to share with you today, but I did link in the description for this activity, I linked a list of other activities and books and puzzles related to tangrams that you can try. So I hope you go and check those out and do more with your tangrams and try making all kinds of shapes with them. I also would love to see if you do make more shapes with your tangrams. If you want to share them with us, you can ask your parent to take a picture and post it to social media with the hashtag SMCLCreates. So I would love to see anything that you make. And I hope that you'll join us again tomorrow for another STEAM Camp activity. Thanks and have a great day.